And welcome to you listening, watching, to our audience here, and of course to our distinguished panel, the Conservative former Chancellor, among many other cabinet posts he held, Ken Clarke, Labour's newly appointed shadow leader of the House of Commons, Chris Bryant, the former Finance Minister of Greece in the Syriza government, who describes himself as an unapologetic Marxist, Yanis Varoufakis, the Deputy Chairman of UKIP, Suzanne Evans, and the columnist and broadcaster, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Oliver Turner's question, please.
Does Britain need an alternative to austerity?
Does Britain need an alternative to austerity? All right, Yanis Varoufakis. I wonder what you'll say.
Well, I don't believe that we need an alternative to austerity, because austerity is not an option. And indeed, I'm going to give a compliment to George Osbourne and to the Tory government. He's going to create some consternation, I think, in the Tory party. He hasn't really practiced austerity. He's talked about austerity. He did a little bit of it, and then it didn't work. He killed off this nascent recovery after 2009 with a little bit of austerity he did, and he stopped it. And indeed, I can assure you that in discussions I have with good friends of mine in the Tory party, they have been very supportive to us here in Greece and to me personally in our struggle to end austerity in Greece, because they said to me, well, we are the party that has this natural proclivity towards belt tightening during bad times, but we can see that what they did to you, we had 18 times more austerity than George Osbourne practiced, and the result was that we lost a quarter of our national income and we ended up in a black hole.
So Labour's got it all wrong.
So it's not a question.
Jeremy Corbyn's wrong. I mean,
no.
We haven't really got austerity at all. There's no problem.
I said there was a little bit of austerity in the grand scheme of things. The problem with austerity is that it's being used as a narrative in order to conduct a class war. And by that, what I mean, and let me give you a very simple example. In Britain today, when you have the lowest percentage of public spending as a proportion of national income for the last 70 years, to be talking about reducing the state further, when effectively what you're doing is you're reducing taxes like inheritance tax, and at the same time you're cutting benefits, that's class war in the state in which Britain finds itself.
All right, Ken Clarke. Class war.
Well, I thought Yanis started well. I mean, austerity is a political cliché word now. I actually, obviously don't agree with Yanis. I believe in free market economics with a social conscience. And
so do I.
Good free market economics with a political conscience. And
yes.
Mr. Marx didn't quite get there.
Well, I am an erratic Marxist, not an unapologetic Marxist.
I see, you're a modern Marxist. But we're moving in the right direction, Yanis.
I'm an inconsistent Marxist.
But anyway, on the serious point, you cannot have the kind of prosperous economy that our children, our grandchildren need unless you combine good, enterprising economic policy with well-managed public finances. That's what the idea that you can somehow run up debt on the scale that all the Western democracies did, run annual deficits on the scale all the democracies did, and either borrow it ad nauseam from other countries at the expense eventually of their taxpayers if you default, or somehow just print it and spend it on worthwhile things would be marvellous if it worked. I mean, if you could just print the money and spend it on people, I'd sign up to that. I think Yanis will accept it doesn't work.
But what about what you said about our economy? I just quote you. Our productivity performance is dreadful. Our investment performance is poor. Trade and export dismal, and we have an appalling current account deficit.
Yeah.
And that's under a Tory government who's practicing the policies that you now say are the right policies to be pursuing.
I do like the political debate to move on.
Right?
It's part of my say. I also said other things. I did say...
Well, you may have said lots of other things, but we did say those.
It's very selective. I actually did, I think, in the same speech... I agree with that. It was part of the point I was making. That little snippet is selected. I mean, it's not confined to you.
Stop digging, Ken.
We are part way to sorting out the worst financial financial crisis in the lifetime anyone in this room, and coming out of our longest and deepest recession since the war. And you have to understand we're doing quite well. We're doing better than any other Western economy, with the possible exception of Ireland's growing faster than us, America's doing quite well. But a precondition in addition to tackling all those problems is healthy public finances. If you just incur annual deficits, but giving in to political pressure, just incur ever-mounting debt, it will destroy the other things. But George Osbourne is halfway through a task, and the first thing to do is to stop 80% debt to GDP ratio rising, and until he's got on top of that, he won't have the kind of economy our children and grandchildren want, and it's got to be combined with actually getting the public finances back to common sense.
I think we get the point, Ken. Thank you very much. And Dan, I'll come to you. I just want to put a question to Yanis, though, because you said you praised George Osbourne, and then you said what was happening was actually a reconstruction of the class system. It was benefiting the rich, not the poor. Are you saying, in effect, that within the measures that the Chancellor can take, he should stick to the same deficit reduction, but just use different methods to achieve it?
I believe there is a lot of rhetoric about deficit reduction. The reality is not deficit reduction. What we have... Look, I will agree utterly with Ken Clarke that there are two pillars of a successful social economy. One is healthy public finances, and the other is investment.
Yep.
Right? So you can have a boisterous private sector. I think that we can agree on that. The disagreement concerns what you do within a decent budget, a healthy budget. You can cut it by reducing the privileges of the rich, by increasing, for instance, inheritance tax instead of reducing it, or you can cut it by reducing tax credits for the poor. Now, that's a decision you can make within the realm of healthy public finances. On investment, the notion that the Bank of England prints mountains of money, purchases paper assets in the City of London, bolsters the banks, which it had to do, I understand it had to do it, but that money somehow will trickle down to investment in productive capacity, that is a fantasy. And this is where an alternative form of QE would be something that we should be discussing. And I don't think that this should boil down to ideology. Milton Friedman, Bernd Bernanke, who are on the side of politics that the Tory party is, would want to have this discussion. We have mishandled QE in Britain, in the United States. We are doing it very badly in the European Union, in the Eurozone now. We should have, as Ken said before, a little bit more light than heat on these matters.
All right. Suzanne.